Anthropology with Nick, as probably my editing will tell you. I'm a little sick, but today we are talking about the field armies of the East Roman Empire. The artwork you will see in your bottom my right is by Giuseppe Rava. Him and Angus McBride will be where I source most of my artwork from. But today, again, like I said, we're talking about the field armies of the East Roman Empire. As you can see on my left, we have a vexillation, or with the hydro on it, which will be the symbol used for the Magister Militum commands. But let's first talk about my sources for this video. I will be using the aptly named The Field Armies of the East Roman Empire. I have it with me, but it covers from 361 to 630 from the reign of Julian the Apostate, or the beginning of his reign, all the way up to the Arab-Roman Wars. But I will also be using Barbarian Migrations from the Roman West by Guy Halsell, which covers from 376 to 568, for a tiny segment about the role of Limitani and Pseudo-Comitatenses. But this is also one of my most important sources, the Notitia Dignitatum. I'm using a compilation done by an excellent historian named Luke Sarson, and I'll leave a link to the website. But the Notitia Dignitatum is a list of all the dignitaries, offices, and units of the late Roman Empire. For the East, it's accurate up until 420, I think, and for the West, it's up till 406. After those dates, units blend together, and because units are destroyed or new ones are created, so it's no longer necessarily accurate. As for the bureaucratic offices and governors, I can't say for certain if it's accurate for that. But let's now talk about the changing legion. At the bottom, we have Limitani, then Auxilia, Pseudo-Comitatenses, Legiones Comitatenses, Palatini, and Scalae. This new system of these new groupings of units emerge after the Tetrarchic system, where Emperor Diocletian reorganizes the Roman army, splitting it up into Limitani and Comitatenses, and then these other categories in between them. I'll talk about Scalae and Palatini in a second, but this comes as a change in the Roman Empire after the crisis of the 3rd century, as no longer could governors individually command legions. The civil and military administrations were separated from governors and then into dukes and commes, dukes and counts respectively, but they would now be part of a wider system where then dukes would command Limitani, or they would command the border armies who would defend at a small scale, while the imperial command under Magister Militums would command the army of the Comitatenses, and alongside Palatini and Scalae units. As for the Palatini and Scalae, they emerge after Constantine the Great disbands the Praetorian Guards, who at this point had murdered countless emperors and were a nuisance in court politics, as well as generally being a little bit useless in actually doing their job. And so he reorganizes them into the Palatini and Scalae. The Scalae are an elite cavalry force that rides with the emperor, while the Palatini are now more a general name for units that serve with the palace, as Palatini comes from the Palatine Hill in Rome, where the emperor would reside. And you can see, as you go up the sort of list I made, it's the closeness to the imperial presence, as in late antiquity, imperial competence sort of worked by having the emperor, by being closest to the emperor, things worked best. The further away from the emperor and away from his prying eyes, the worse things would work. This is what Halsell says in his opening chapters, where he gives examples of, in North Africa, a military count basically taking money that was meant for the troops and messing up with the field army there. And because he was on the fringes of the North African provinces, he was able to get away with it. However, if he tried to attempt that more in the heartlands of the empire, at that time around Mediolanum or in Constantinople, he would have been executed. So it is important that at the border, I should get back to it, the border, you have more of the Limitani. They are the first responders. They are the border guards who watch the border. But then, it's part of these imperial armies. You have Legiones Comitatenses and Pseudo-Comitatenses that could be drafted, as well as Comitatenses. The distinction made as part of the Notitia Dignitatum, Legiones Comitatenses are comitatenses that are attached to a legion, while comitatenses are units that are directly serving in or under an imperial army. And so let's now talk about these imperial armies. But first, we got to make the distinction. There was different organizations in the Western Empire. When I say empire, I mean the Western court. As in theory, or in practice, I should say, this was all still one empire. Even up until 476, this was, in the Romans' eyes, one empire with two imperial courts. In the Western court, there was one high magister militum office. Famous holders of this office will be people like Stilicho or Flavius Aetius. Well, in the Eastern Empire, there are 5 different military commands that are on relatively equal standing with each other because they deal with their own designated areas. Starting with the ones closest to the imperial presence are the aptly named Magister Militums Presentalis 1 and 2. Presentalis 1 is based in Constantinople, and it contains 5 Palatini vexellations. A vexellation is like a cavalry detachment, and so Palatini vexellation would be palatial cavalry units, and the next comitatenses, the vexellations would be the comitatenses cavalry units, then 6th legion of Palatini, so 6 Palatine legions, so foot troops, and then 18 auxilia palatini, so would be like auxiliary skirmishers, auxiliary bowmen who would serve as part of this military command. And using the Parisian manuscript provided from Luke Sarson's website, he has different manuscripts, but the one I chose to focus on was the Parisian manuscript because I think it looks best. But these are the different shields of the different commands for the Magister Militum Presentalis 1. Now let's move on to Magister Militum Presentalis 2. This was based in Anatolia, but this contains 6 Palatini vexellations, 6 comitatenses vexellations, 6 legiones Palatini, 17 auxilia Palatini, then 1 pseudo-comitatenses, a Sagittari unit that was drafted to serve as part of this Presentalis army. Pseudo-comitatenses, I might have mentioned this before, but they're like ad hoc units that are formed, often grabbing from the Limitani units and making them a part of the field army, but they were viewed as less than the comitatenses. They were paid less, and I think frankly treated a little worse. But now let's move on to the manuscripts for this. You can see the 2 X's down here, I think, are for the pseudo-comitatenses, or just ones where they couldn't find any applicable shield design. Now let's move on to Magister Militum Illyricum. This Magister Militum, alongside Thracium or Thracius, are the 2 that sort of get beaten down the most. And so this one contains 2 comitatenses vexellations, 2 legiones comitatenses, 1 legiones palatini, 6 auxilia palatini, the 9 pseudo-comitatenses, and this is explained as due to trouble in the Balkans, dealing with the Huns and dealing with the Goths, as again this was compiled, I think, for the Eastern Empire around 400. More, it's accurate up until 420, so around there, but at this point they had been dealing with the Goths and the Huns for such a bit that the Dacian, or the Illyricum command had been thrashed a little, so it has 9 pseudo-comitatenses units that were drafted from the Limitani border guards. But you can see there's a lot of shield missings because how damaged this army was. I sort of find it funny because now we'll move on to Magister Militum Thracius. They're like the punching bags of the Magister Militums in the East, because you have Adrianople, where Thracius and Presentalis 1 and 2 are destroyed. You have the Battle of the River Utus, 447. The Huns destroy Magister Militum, Illyricum, and Thracium, and I think Presentalis. It was either 1 or 2, but it was such a degree that basically they get destroyed, have to let in Goths and hire a bunch of Goths, then get destroyed again, and it's this whole cycle. But the best part about these Roman armies is they were able to regroup and survive, and then remuster forces to then put up another fight. But Thracius had 3 Palatini vexallations, 4 Comitatenses vexallations, then 19 Legionis Comitatenses. Now let's move on to my favorite. After we see the shields in the Parisian manuscript from Magister Militum Thracius, you can see very cool shields. Now let's move on to my favorite, Magister Militum per Orientum. These guys dealt with probably the most serious threat to the Roman Empire in the East, the Sassanid Persians. So they were on that timing with the Sassanids. It was 0 to 100. It was every like 10 to 20 years they would just go back and forth with the Sassanids. So as such, they have 10 or 11 Comitatenses vexallations. 11, I think, is the number given by the Parisian manuscript. But then 2 Auxilia Palatini, 8 Legionis Comitatenses, and 11 Pseudo Comitatenses, as they were on with the Sassanids. It was, again, back and forth. I plan to make a video about Julian the Apostate, and he campaigns against the Sassanids, and I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to spoil the future video. Let's see from the Parisian manuscript. You can see the shield art of the Magister Militum Orientum. But now let's talk about the end of the Magister Militum system, as in the 640s and in the 630s, out of the Arabian desert erupts the Arabs, unified under the banner of Islam, the Rashidun, and then the Umayyad Caliphate, successfully defeat the Romans. I think the most famous battle was the Battle of Yarmouk, where Emperor Heraclius, at that point sort of diminished by dementia, is defeated, and the army is scattered, with the whole Levant and Egypt falling. These are critical provinces of the Roman Empire lost forever, and so there has to be a change, as the Magister Militum system has proven not to be adequate to deal with this threat, as even though Anatolia has sort of become the frontier, as with the loss of the Levant and Egypt, there are constant Arab border raids, and so there emerges a new system of the Thamata. The 640s, the Magister Militum title becomes more of an honorific title to give, to give a good general, you give him a Magister Militum title, but the real power is held by the Strategos, who command the Thema system, and so it's more now that power is decentralized by province, or theme by theme, I should say, and it's now these themes are responsible for dealing with any incursion or any threat that emerges in the area. You can see on this map of the themes of the Roman Empire in 1025, I think at the height under Basil II. There's the Ducat of Mesopotamia, Vespericon, Chaldea, and Antioch, all on the border with the Arab and later Turkic states, to fight off any incursions. And so, over 300 years, the Roman army in the East changes from these Magister Militums to the Thamata system to deal with the new threats that arose. Well, with that, I'm Anthropology with Nick. I'll talk a little about the videos I'm planning to do next. I'm planning to do a video on Julian the Apostate and his reign from 361 to 363. I'm also, this is going to be a little repetitive, well, more same time frame. I'm going to do a video on the Great Conspiracy in Roman Britain, which is 367. And so, the reason I said it's a little repetitive is because after Julian dies, then you have Jovian, then you have Valentinian. The barbarian, or the Great Conspiracy, happens during the reign of Valentinian. So this is all within like 10 years of itself. I like this period, and you guys are going to watch it regardless. I'm Anthropology with Nick. I'll see you guys next time.